One of the best places to find original content these days is, of course, Netflix.
Please tell me they put a Walgreens in this Netflix. What are you guys gonna watch next? You wanna hang out?
Without the restrictions of basic cable, Netflix is known to do and show what it wants, much like HBO. From the super obvious to shows that initially seem kid-friendly, Netflix has quite a few original programs that should be avoided by kids at all costs.
I don't like your tone.
Why not click on that subscribe button? That way you'll be sure to get brand new content from Screen Rant every day in your feed. Can you guess the television series based off these emoji? Stay tuned for the answer.
Or at least tolerate them. Or stop putting them on sticks.
Castlevania. We've said it before and we'll say it again. Just because a film or television series is animated does not mean it's suitable for children.
And the negative effects of body shaming we have there. Hey Leslie, put a f***ing sock in it!
Case in point, the Netflix original anime series, Castlevania. Most video game adaptations kind of suck. It's a sad fact, but Netflix and executive producer Adi Shankar actually delivered a series that was actually pretty awesome. It was both faithful to the original source material while being accessible enough for newcomers to dive into. The acclaimed series is set in Eastern Europe and follows a demon hunter unwillingly caught up in a war against none other than Dracula.
I am Vlad Dracula Tepesh, and I do not get many visitors.
So what makes this series inappropriate for children? Well, let's just say that it's insanely violent and gruesome at times. Thanks to being an animation, the violence goes all out, blood and gore being hurled at the screen in almost excessive amounts. No one is safe on this show, so bear that in mind if you were to give it a chance. The antagonists in the series are pure evil and show no biases or sympathy, making them some of the nastiest creatures to grace the small screen. Take note, parents, these demons are literally the stuff of nightmares.
They're just full of crazy. It's terrifying.
Orange is the New Black. One of the earliest shows on Netflix is also one of its most popular. Orange is the New Black is based on the memoir of the same name and deals with life inside a women's minimum security penitentiary. As we know, just about every film or television show set in a prison is ripe with things that are unpleasant enough for most adults.
Stick 'em up, you
Never mind children. As you can imagine, most of the characters in the show are criminals in some regard. The initial lead character, Piper, found herself incarcerated for drug trafficking and puts her in the same building as some other equally ambitious ladies. Now, being an all-woman prison, you can imagine that there are some pretty graphic situations going on.
Dude, tell.
There's quite a bit of frontal nudity for both men and women throughout the show, and of course, plenty of raunchy encounters. The show also makes reference to various acts in detail.
wet floor.
So there's that to bear in mind if your youngster should be in the next room over when you're watching it. There's not much violence in the show, but when it does go down, let's just say that prison knives can make quite a mess.
I will cut you! I will cut you!
Couple that with some swearing and a strong cigarette presence, and you have a show that's critically acclaimed for adults, but not exactly material for young kids. Duh.
Are you drunk? Todd, I weigh over 1,200 pounds. It takes a lot of beer to get me drunk. Yes.
BoJack Horseman. You know things are going to be different when you first start off BoJack Horseman. First off, there's anthropomorphic animals living in coexistence with humans. On paper, yeah, that's actually a pretty good start for a kid-friendly show. What happens to make it not so? Just about everything else, actually. BoJack is one of Netflix's most popular animated series, and for good reason. Set in Hollywood, the series does a fine job at depicting the hardships of living in Tinseltown.
Nothing on the outside, nothing on the inside.
BoJack is a washed-up sitcom actor and regularly goes on benders, abuses various substances, and generally aims for rock bottom. It may be funny, but it's sometimes a scary reality for those living in the industry. This being Netflix, the show doesn't just stop at narcotics. It embraces the fact that it can toss the F word around like it's nobody's business, which might be a little odd for a child to see a horseman swearing while under the influence. And you wonder why it's popular. The show isn't just about partying and debauchery, though. Thanks to the setting and the type of work that gets done in Hollywood, BoJack actually touches upon themes of mental health, something that's not quite as common as you'd think. Just coupled with the abusive nature of the characters, and it's not exactly the best role model material for kids.
And then he turned around and made my most private thoughts a public spectacle.
13 Reasons Why. We could give you at least 13 reasons why kids should never watch this show, and it still wouldn't be enough. It makes sense that a show set in high school, tackling the many demons that haunt teenagers, would be a little extreme. But many fans of the books didn't expect the show to be so extreme in its depiction of both teenage life and the causes of suicide. Right off the bat, let's just say that Hannah's suicide scene is one of the most difficult scenes to watch in any medium. Witnessing it, no matter what your state of mind is going to be a traumatic experience. Letting a kid watch it might change them, and not in a good way. Many therapists, principals, and counselors have actually advised parents to not let their teens watch the controversial show.
Her mind or in her heart, there's no way to know why she did what she did.
Citing that it glamorizes teen suicide. Everything from bullying, rape, substance abuse, and self-harm are used throughout the season, and it can be emotionally exhausting. Letting a kid watch it should be a big, fat no. Teenagers should talk with each other about the show, and with their parents about mental health and the themes about the show, especially if there are themes that are relatable. Narcos. A Netflix original about drug cartels in the late 80s. Bit of a no-brainer, isn't it? Netflix starts itself off with the humble origins of none other than Pablo Escobar. While the DEA and CIA have their own missions in Colombia and what they mean to do about the drug trafficking situation, along with their own flawed central characters, it's the narcos themselves that take center stage. Let's just say that those drug trafficking types are some pretty brutal individuals, and the show doesn't shy away from some of the terrible things that they've done over the years. There's violence against other cartels, which includes shootings and bombings galore. There's also the eventual death of civilians. Many of these attacks are cross-cut with actual footage of the real events, which makes it that much more horrifying. There's also the fact that the show is about narcotics, along with what people will do to get more of it. There's some pretty heavy stuff here, and just about everyone on the show is a terrible person in some regard. Not exactly the kind of role model material you'd want your kids to grow up watching, no matter what Pablo tells himself at night.
Abort.
Stranger Things. Now, when we say kids shouldn't be watching these shows, we mean kids. The children in Stranger Things are well beyond that particular demographic and are part of the target audience for the series. It's inevitable that children will grow up into potty-mouthed adolescents, and Stranger Things is fully aware of this. The central cast of kids in this show have some seriously salty language.
Son of a Son of a
Will
Bull.
But it's not the swearing that's the main reason to avoid it. While the show isn't quite a horror series, it does have some moments of suspense and scares, and it certainly has some impressive monster designs. The Demogorgon from Season 1 is enough to give young children and adults nightmares. Couple that with the cruel experiments that Eleven had to endure throughout her childhood, and there's enough in here to make any youngster a bit squeamish. Her papa was a bit of a jerk and went to the extreme when it came to his experiments.
I'd rather have this than any firearm.
The Punisher. When you think Marvel, it's hard to think family-friendly adventure films that make copious amount of profit at the box office. The same can't be said for the MCU on the small screen. What started with Daredevil has blown into its own little cinematic universe. Season 2 of Daredevil introduced us to Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, and his crusade to take down criminals the hard way across the rotten apple. In fact, Punisher is probably one of the most violent Marvel releases to date across film and television. Yeah, the Punisher show is really friggin' violent. It is one thing to have shootouts, which are featured in the show, but the manner of the violence in the show makes it something else altogether. From torture interrogation to making use of a shotgun at point-blank range, this one will probably put most adults on edge.
You're home on the elliptical watching this. I see you, but you say a word.
Big Mouth. At first glance, Big Mouth looks like it may actually be okay for kids.
Let me ask you, do you mind that I'm holding your hand?
There's no wacky horseman character, no giant demons ready to bring holy hell down on civilians. What could go wrong, right? Well, naturally, you'd be hysterically wrong because Big Mouth is one of the most inappropriate shows for kids on this entire list.
Oh, God, you disgust me.
To be fair, the show does a pretty good job at portraying all the raunchy thoughts and actions that take place in the life and minds of young people. But then things just get weird, especially for an animation.
Oh, then go back in. This is bad.
There's some animated nudity in this show that's sometimes pretty up close and detailed, which can be uncomfortable considering the characters' ages. But things can get even weirder, such as that one time there was a basketball game comprised entirely of the male organ. There was another time when the character Jay actually impregnated his pillow after doing the deed to her overnight.
No. She's so much more than a pillow.
It's trying to say important stuff here about being safe, but yeah, it's probably best to wait until your kids are at least teenagers for this one. There's also some highly offensive language. We don't just mean swearing either, of which there is plenty, but words such as the dreaded "see you next Tuesday" are even used, which for many is a huge red flag, understandably. Well, that's it for now, everyone. If you have kids, have you ever watched a grown-up show with them? Have they ever accidentally walked in on an inappropriate moment on TV? What do you think was your first grown-up TV show? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more awesome videos like this one added to your playlist every day. Thanks for watching. And the answer to our emoji question is...